Welcome to Product Rising. I'm Elizabeth Ames, the executive producer of Product Rising and the former CEO of Women in Product. At Product Rising, we focus on providing meaningful information and insightful conversations about how to succeed and advance your career. If you find this information helpful, please follow us and recommend us to others. For more information about Women in Product, please visit womenpm.org or join our community. Links are provided in the show notes. A quick programming note that December 23rd and 30th, we'll be replaying two great episodes from earlier this year. And now on to today's episode, which is the second interview in our series, The Visibility Equation. This series was created and is hosted by Surbhi Gupta, who set out to demystify the art of professional visibility through candid conversations and practical frameworks. Surbhi brings a wonderful blend of strategy, clarity, and human-centered leadership to this series. With nearly 2 decades of experience driving product innovation across big tech and startups, including companies like Amazon and Tesla, she has led work spanning subscription commerce, cloud monetization, finance, social media, and autonomous vehicles. Her work has been featured in Forbes. She is a keynote speaker and radio host, making her a wonderful guide for conversations on visibility, growth, and impact. Our guest in this episode is Lexy Franklin, the CEO and founder of Sidebar, a platform for career growth that provides access to peer circles, one-on-one expert advice, and networking to build career connections. Prior to starting Sidebar, Lexy was an entrepreneur in residence at Foundation Capital and held a variety of product and business development roles at Booyah, Facebook, and Strive. And with that, I'll turn it over to Surbhi and Lexy.
Lexy, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast. To kick things off, what are 1 or 2 skills or mindsets or maybe habits that you believe most contributed to your success and visibility?
Thank you so much for having me. So I would say the top 2 skills that that I'm just very lucky. One is that I love learning, and I'm very energized to learn new things. I was recently at a CEO summit, and one of our investors actually said this, and I thought it was so brilliant. He said, "How do you keep up in a world that's changing faster than you can learn? What do you do?" And the answer was learn faster. And I think that that propensity, that slope to just constantly be okay to being at the bottom of a proverbial mountain, and that the only way to the top is just to learn and to try and to figure things out, is such a critical skill set. And I was so lucky that I had so many teachers and mentors and people from a very young age who just were like, "Oh, we see you like to learn. Like, can you learn this? Can you go faster? Like, what does that look like?" So that's kind of the first number one thing that's related to visibility. And I think that the second thing that comes to mind to me is, I think faith. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't mean it so much in the religious sense of the word, but I think in a trust sense of the word, which is that so much of success is toiling away in the darkness. It's just showing up every day. And I was taught really early in my career that, decisions get made by people who show up, and that it's just so important to just show up day after day with the same energy and the same positivity, and the not knowing part of one's career and one's visibility, which is you could work so hard on something. It could be the best thing you've ever done in your entire life. And if we're really good at this and we're really good at our jobs, maybe that works like 1 out of 5 times. But how do you have that faith to wake up and to turn your eyes to the North Star and keep going day in and day out with not knowing the outcome? And that it could really not work, or it could really fail, or this might not be the 100-mile-an-hour fastball that you thought it was. And to show up with just as much enthusiasm and just as much openness and just as much joy and just as much propensity to learn, like the combination of those two are a fairly unstoppable force.
I love it. I 100% agree because, like, taking the second one, which is like, if you don't even show up, then you're not even give it a try. At least you will be successful. If you try 5 times, that's such a high rate of success.
I love that so much. And the third one that I almost said, and that is, I think failure is a huge part of success. Bob Dylan has this amazing line, which is, there's no success like failure, and failure is no success at all, which is something I've been interested in my whole life, right? Which is, there's no success like failure, in that we actually learn a lot more from failing than we do from succeeding, because we're a lot more introspective and critical when things don't go right than when things go right. When things go right, at least I have a tendency to like roll with it. If I'm really mindful, I'll break it down, but I'll kind of roll with it and be like, this is working. But when things don't go right, that there's no success like failure. But on the flip side, we live in a society that has a lot of pressure, that like Bob is like, failure is no success at all. That like, how do you kind of like, for the vast majority of school, of work, of all these things, like, do failures really count? And does that matter? And there's this like really interesting juxtaposition. Even when I was at Stanford and learning, I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, we're trying to become these women and these men and these amazing titans of history that we're studying. But so much of their life is full of so much failure. And how do you get comfortable failing really often? And how do you get comfortable being okay with things just that you care so much about, that might be the best thing you've ever built in your entire life, just not working? And realize that, okay, that's just a step on the journey, and that's okay. And that's actually not the end of this chapter. It's not the end of this story. It just is super unfortunate and super painful in the moment.
Yeah. And I also feel it's the journey that matters. Outcome could be success or failure. Nobody knows that, but we learn as we are going. So, whatever it is, if we have done our work, irrespective of outcome, we are going to learn. And connecting to your first point, the best way to learn fast is to do. My way of learning is just jumping into it. But what are your thoughts? How Lexi thinks one can learn faster.
I think what you're saying is so brilliant. So there's this amazing Ursula K. Le Guin quote, who's this incredible fantasy writer. And she says, it's nice to have an end to journey towards, but it's the journey that matters in the end. And it's so true. And this happens when you get success in life, where you're like, great, that was awesome. And then 5 minutes later, you're kind of moved on and you're like on to the next thing, because it's really the journey that shapes us. And I think that on learning, just doing things is so powerful. It's such a powerful way to learn. And I think that when I think about when we're young, kind of everything we do is fail. Like, we're just trying to learn new things and like fail all the time. Like, I remember going to grade school. I'm like, well, I've never been a fifth grader and I'm pretty bad at this, right? Like, I've never been in this class. I don't know this math. I don't know how to read in this way. Like, I don't know geography. I gotta learn. I'm like failing all of the time. And that helps us learn so fast. And so I think doing is one really important thing. I think a huge unlock from a visibility side is asking for help, and like a comfort around asking for help and guidance. This was something in my life that I was really stubborn about until I wasn't. And it was like the eggshell cracked. I was really into school growing up. I wanted to be the best student in America. I loved school. I really didn't care about grades. I just loved learning. I wanted it all in my head. I just couldn't get enough of it. And then finally, I got to a subject where I was just so bad at it, Spanish. I was like really bad. La Senora Vargas was the most amazing teacher we had at our school, but I just like couldn't figure out how to speak Spanish. I tried to memorize it, and I just like couldn't get it. Like, languages were just really hard for me. And so I started going to office hours, and I just would spend an hour a day.
Habla español now.
Sí, ya, yo puedo hablar en español, pero yo no tengo nada accente. So solamente, I just sound like me all the time. But I learned it, but because of Senora Vargas. And what she was amazing was that she would spend an hour a day with me teaching. Like, I didn't know how to do it. I had hit something that I just didn't know how to do. And then the same thing happened in chemistry class. Like, I just wanted to be amazing at chemistry, and I just had so many questions. And Mr. Treader, who's the best, spent an hour with me after school every day for a year, teaching me extra chemistry for a year. Like, I would talk to La Senora, I would talk to Mr. Treader. And so, asking for help, I realized, wait, there's not that many other people who are in office hours. Like, this is this amazing opportunity to get the best advice that you possibly can from someone else. And I think that that is the fastest way to learn is to say, I don't know.
I would love to hear an example where it helped you in building visibility.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have 1,000 examples. So we have this amazing investor, Matt Chinook, who is one of the most brilliant marketing minds I've ever met. He's brilliant. And I think one of the amazing things about being a CEO is that you actually get to ask for help all the time. So like
Mhm.
we have this amazing group of, partners and guides and investors and all these and teammates, and everyone's constantly giving you 1,000 thoughts about how to do it. And it's great to think through that and be like, wow, that's like 20 years of their life distilled into 5 minutes of telling me what to do. When you become a CEO, so much of that conversation becomes about you need to step into this role of visibility. You're leading this company and you need to have a presence and you need to tell your stories. And Matt explained that to me and was like, actually, by you not stepping into this visibility and by not telling the story, there's a lot less people who can join the movement. And that was a really good example to answer your original question of getting help from someone to help change my mindset.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense. So interact with so many people. What have you observed? Like, what is people's number one mistake when they try to become visible?
Okay, this is a great question.
Or
So
maybe more mistakes if there is more than one. I
yeah, so
mean,
I'm going to give a really authentic answer. I'm like a big believer in people. Like I love people. And I think that one of the brilliant things about meeting a new person is you get to see their brilliance, right? How intelligent they are, how unique they are, their like incredible story. Like that's what jumps out of those interactions. And I think when people think about visibility, they don't think often enough about their uniqueness and
mm,
about what sets them apart. So one of the things that we do as a part of Sidebar and super interviews is we help people get jobs. And I think this is really prevalent when you're putting yourself out there to go get a new role, is that actually it's not, I'm talking to a person who's a PM and who has a great background, who's like, has a certain type of experiences. I'm talking to a unique person, like a one of one person in the world. And they have the best possible experiences and the best possible work history for them. Like they are the fully optimized version of themselves. And I think around visibility, I don't feel like people lead enough with their uniqueness. We're all told to be ourselves, but that's actually a really hard thing to do. And it's a really hard thing to do at work. And it's a really hard thing to do when you're growing really fast at your job. And it takes a lot of courage and it's difficult. And I think that what I see is that every single person has a unique set of experiences and a unique story to tell. And that overlaps. So that's part A, but that needs to overlap with the audience and kind of
mm,
what the audience wants to hear and what they're interested in. And I think that there are these amazing overlaps that occur when you're like, here's the thing I'm super passionate about that I tell only I could tell, and I could tell with so much passion and so much enthusiasm and so much insight, overlapped with other people are trying to figure it out too, and they're trying to learn too. There's this amazing quote from the Ram Dass, which is, "We're all just walking each other home. Like we're all trying to learn it at the same time." And that's probably the number one thing that I see the most, like at all levels, is that you don't feel the owning of your story,
mm.
an individual's uniqueness. And I think it's a big loss.
I agree. And uniqueness comes with authenticity, as you had mentioned earlier. So, what do you recommend from your experience? And I think as part of your work now as a CEO of Sidebar, you must be interacting with a lot of people.
Yeah.
What do you recommend to these folks, or what do you recommend to professionals to show up authentically without fear? Sometimes there's fear, like without oversharing or posturing. So, what is a fine balance here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is probably the biggest insight that I have had, and it's been slow and then fast over the last few months. So I think one of the things that was the most powerful lesson that I ever learned, and I probably learned it 15 years ago, but I probably only fully understand it now, or maybe I don't even fully understand it, and I'm still learning. But it's the difference between being humble and being modest. So, and I think it's very related to what we're talking about because I think it's a lot about owning your story. So I'll kind of walk through humbleness versus modesty, and then I'll kind of walk through how that leads to how you can communicate your unique story because they're all related to each other. I learned this in a leadership workshop 15 years ago, and I thought it was really impactful. I think being humble means being authentic about who you are, and it means you're real. You're like, I did these things. They were awesome. Or I did these things and they were terrible. It's like a very mirrored view on all of your accomplishments and everything you've done in your career. Humility comes from not using those accomplishments to necessarily make other people feel like they can't share their accomplishments as well, right? It's like you want to be the light that lights other people around. You never want to use kind of your intelligence or your accomplishments to make other people feel less than. And I think arrogance can sometimes make other people around you feel less than. So there's like a humbleness versus an arrogance, right? And that's not confidence. Confidence is feeling like trusting that you have the experience and the skills to go solve a problem that either you've seen before or you haven't seen before, or you have the logic to be able to figure your way out of it. And so those confidence, humility, arrogance, like we're all kind of playing in a realm of, okay, I've done these things and here's how I'm communicating about them. I don't like modesty because I think modesty is unauthentic. I think modesty is not acknowledging the things you've done, but actually kind of being over things that you've actually accomplished in order to make other people feel a certain way. So modesty doesn't feel as authentic to me as being humble. And I think that that's actually really important because modesty feels like I'm trying to get a reaction out of someone else. Like I'm doing an action in order to elicit a reaction. And all of a sudden I'm trying to play checkers or chess in a situation. And I'm not just being authentic and owning what's happened.
I love it. So the reason I say, because I've observed many women, especially when somebody is saying, "Oh, you did a great job," and then it's like, "Oh, but it's just normal. This is okay. It just happened. Lucky, I was lucky." So you are kind of diminishing your own impact, and that is so much related with what you have said for modesty. I love it when you say, "Be authentic, be truthful, and then own it," right?
So in this same workshop, this is kind of a crazy story. In this same workshop, when we're really driven people and we want to get a perfect score, and we did this, someone says thank you, or that you're amazing, or that I love what you did here. I find for me it's so easy to gloss over that and not acknowledge it and not acknowledge the gift that someone's trying to give me. And that's what it was taught to me is that when someone compliments you, it's actually like them giving you a present. And by not acknowledging their present, you're like doing them a disservice. So even if it's hard for us to take it in, it's you're doing someone else a disservice. And that motivated me. And in this workshop, Dave Ellis, who's an amazing leader and an amazing coach, taught me to just say thank you. Like
Yeah.
when someone says, I love that presentation, whatever's going on in my own head, thank you. And that's kind of the authentic answer. And why this really matters. Why this really matters is because I think a huge part of visibility is owning your story. And I
Mm.
think a huge part of owning your story is understanding your story and claiming it and standing in its power. And I think a huge part of standing in its power is understanding your wins.
Yeah.
So this is the number one piece of feedback that I give people when they're looking for a new role. So, at Sidebar, we're laser focused on helping people who are in their jobs just get better at their jobs and grow and accelerate so quickly in their careers. And for people who are in transition and they're trying to find the next thing and they're applying for a job and they want to stand out, 600 people on average apply to every job. Only 5% of people get an interview. Only 5% of people get the role. On average, people need to interview like 20 times to get a job. Like it's crazy out there. But I think owning your wins is incredibly important. And I learned this in a conversation with an amazing person, Russo Kazi, who is a brilliant founder. And he said to me that his biggest lesson was learning about owning your wins. And I think that there's something so powerful of sitting down and really thinking about what are the 5 to 10 outlier wins that you have that your work has contributed to. And I think one other really important thing I would share here, and then we'll get to why this matters for visibility, is that I think one other really important thing to share is that in the space of wins in one's career, this is the most abundant world we could live in. Like there's so much abundance there. There's abundance for that win to be your win. There's abundance for that win to be my win. Like there's so much like our cups overflow with how much we can give in this world of wins. But what were the 5 to 7 things in your career work you did that led to an outlier outcome? And so my first piece of advice is be authentic. Two is just get way closer to those 5 wins. Like get way more comfortable talking about, get way more intimate with what you did that contributed to them, analyze them a lot more, try and look in the bright spots, get way more connected to them. Because I think that that is ultimately, when we think about visibility, we're not actually judged so much by what doesn't go right in our lives. I think we're judged by what goes really right.
Mm.
And I think that that was a huge insight for me in this conversation with a mentor learning. And I think that it was pretty transformational because in that world, it's so easy to walk into a situation and think about all of our foibles or all of our follies or all of our weaknesses or less thans, right? Maybe you had some gaps in your resume, or maybe you worked at a company and it didn't work, or maybe you had a manager in the past and you don't see exactly eye to eye, or maybe it took 3 years to get a job out of college. And there's all these things that we could feel like we need to answer for, but also you probably are just an amazing human being and super talented and incredible. And here are your wins. And here's what we can really focus on. And that's really in these situations what people are energized by and engaged in and learning from. And so I think that once you know your wins and you're really authentic, those are 2 keys to unlock the final step into visibility.
Yeah, I love it what you said. And I personally think that matters a lot. Especially, I feel it's inside out as well. And one of our guests on the podcast also double clicked more on this because
Cool.
if I am feeling confident, I'm projecting that energy, and then other person will also get that. As you said, the simple 2 words, thank you, make all the difference. Instead of that, I have observed many people diminishing. I would just say, hey, your hair is looking nice, you have a lovely dress, and somebody is like, oh, is it? But I have a bad hair day. So just tell me thank you. And I will feel like, okay, they own it and their hair is nice versus they telling me some caveat. So I am just
I
giving a
love
very
that.
rudimentary example, but that's how we behave as humans.
Well, what I think what's awesome is like, I think when you're authentic and I think when you know your wins, then all of a sudden that leads to confidence. And I
Mm.
think that this was probably our biggest insight across all of Sidebar, because this is why I really started the company, is that I personally believe that nothing accelerates your career more than learning from your peers. It's just the most incredible thing in the world because everyone's walking around as a genius, right? With hard earned, tuition paid work experience that's sitting in their heads. And I am just learning and experiencing all these new things and trying to solve all these problems. And there is something that that would save me 2 or 3 years of my life because you already tried it and you have your unique perspective and you have some insight. And I don't know if there's anything I know that would save you 2 or 3 years of your life, but I think that that exchange is so powerful. And that's the third part of visibility in my mind is once we're confident that our knowledge is super valuable, and
Mhm.
not that it's valuable, but that it's needed, and that by not sharing it is kind of doing a disservice to
Mhm.
everyone around us, then that whole conversation changes. And that's what changed for me in my head, which was like, oh, I'm just sharing what I'm learning. Like I'm just sharing all the stuff that I spent all this tuition on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if you don't have to spend tuition on it, that's amazing. Like take it and go accelerate it. And if you disagree with it, that's amazing too. But that changed for me, made it feel less about it being about me and more about information that just needs to be shared. Like I learned this, it's really important. It led to an outlier impact. I have no idea how it'll get remixed and amalgamated in the world, but I'm putting it out there because it mattered to me. And hopefully someone could take it and make it 10 times better.
Yeah, no, I totally believe in that. And I have personally experienced when I'm sharing, I learn more because maybe I'm doing something without thinking, that's part of my nature. But when I'm discussing with someone, then I'm also doing some retro perspective and some analysis, my different part of brain is triggered, perhaps.
Well, that's like the smartest thing ever, right? That's such a brilliant statement, is that it's one of these super rare things
Mhm.
where very rare in life is something both uh selfish and magnanimous at the same time. And I think what's awesome is that it's magnanimous because you're sharing these brilliant things. Everyone gets to learn from you, and we're so lucky. But on
Yeah.
the other hand, it's awesome and it's kind of selfish because we just get better by teaching other people and sharing ideas. So you're in this amazing feedback loop of, wait, this is awesome. It feels good, but it's also really helpful, and it's awesome and it's really helpful. And so I kind of think that I mean, there's this incredible quote that's attributed to lots of people, but it was said by Marianne Williamson. And it goes something like this. Our biggest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our biggest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. And who are we to live these small lives? And I think stepping into one's power, stepping into one's visibility, stepping into the gift that we all are is so important. What you're sharing matters. It's going to change someone's life. And that's what I think we're on this planet for, is to help empower people to, as individuals, become the best version of ourselves we want to be, however you define that, and to help empower other people to go find that too.
Yeah, yeah, that quote is so powerful. One of my very good friends used it. I have a spiritual class, and even people are scared to advance in spirituality, and he often uses this quote.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
not just like this dimension, but in any dimension, because we're like, oh, how can I do this? Right? Is it possible? Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting and it's so hard, right? It's so hard to have that confidence and put all those things together to get knocked down and pick yourself back up. If we want to keep improving all the time,
Mhm.
sharing our thoughts, learning from other people, interacting with this, stepping into, wait, this is who I am. Like, this is the most important thing that anyone can do. I think as a long finish to this question, I guess I thought visibility was optional before. Like, I thought that it was something where, yeah, I could focus on this or I could not focus on it, but it was more a nice to have or an optional thing. It wasn't the work. It wasn't like really part of the core of what mattered. But really, what I've come to learn is that visibility is inextricable with whoever we want to become in the world. And stepping into that is to become visible, it is to become seen, it is to become. So I think it's really important.
I think that's the most powerful statement I have heard, that yes, visibility is not optional. It's like I cannot be invisible and be here. So why do we have to struggle with visibility, and why are there so many connotations? Though, is it like gonna make me look very arrogant? I think people have all these inhibitions. So if we do it in the right way, as we discussed, then we have to do it in the right way. Let's just put it that. Yeah.
I love that so much. And one really interesting thing that I've just made this mistake on 1,000 times, which is if you're worried about looking in a certain way, you're probably so far away from that thing that you're worried about. Even having the awareness of it means that you're not even anywhere in the danger zone. So, how can we step into that uncomfortable thing a bit more and get a little bit closer to that edge, right? If we're skating, skate closer to that edge because we're probably like 100 miles away. If you're worried about coming across as arrogant, you're probably 100 miles away from being arrogant. And so, there's a lot of room to play and there's a lot of room to step in yourself there.
Like, see, that sounds so empowering. That yes, because people who know the most, they think that they don't know that much, right? If you don't know much at that level, you think I know a lot. But as you grow, then you uncover there's a lot more. So that's why people who are more self-aware can think that, oh, am I gonna make this mistake? But we have a lot of leg room and perhaps we will correct. Yeah. And I also like what you said originally as we started this conversation about just do it. Just show
Yeah.
up. Because
Yeah.
even reading many founder stories, whether it's Google, like any big or small, usually people are like, okay, I want to follow this framework, this strategy. But my learning each and every time, even my own life, whatever I have achieved, I don't think there was a defined framework. It's actually trying to do different things, saying yes, trying to do the best at that time. And that creates, when you look back, okay, there was this pattern and I could create a framework, rather than just sticking to a framework. I read this book, How Google Works, and I was like,
Um,
every point, everything that the founders did, was best in that course based on the knowledge they had, and nobody can have all the knowledge.
No.
And some of your decisions can go well, some don't, but if you keep on doing and not just give up, you will land somewhere.
I mean, what a brilliant thing about being human in the world, right? Is like if you
Yeah.
just keep going and you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. I mean, you talk to the best founders, like the best founders, and they all say the same thing, which is, the highs aren't quite as high, the lows aren't quite as low. You're probably not as dumb as people think you are sometimes, and you're definitely not as smart as people think you are either. And it's really just showing up and putting one foot in front of the other. And you said something so brilliant, which was and just doing the best you can with the information that you have. And that's the game, is just to do the best you can with the information you have. And I think this is so interesting. I think about this all the time because our stories make sense in reverse. We live them going forward. And I think that there are so many moments of just staring up at the stars and being like, how is this all going to come together? Like, we don't know the answer to that question. And at the end of the story, it's a nice little neat bow, but we can't be like, how is this journey going to play out? Like, that's the whole point, is you don't know. But what I think you can do is exactly what you said. Show up with positive energy and excitement and focus every day and just keep going. Now, one thing that I think is important though, when it comes to visibility, is what you can do is own your power and own your story and really think about that and really think about what are the things you want to share. You can be lost, but also be driving the car at the same time. And I think that that juxtaposition is really important.
Very well said. Yeah, sharing a personal story, at some point in my life, I wanted this thing that I want to take the best decisions. So I used to do a lot of information gathering, like
Yeah.
college, which engineering college to go for. Like
Yeah.
I had lots of options. And then, it becomes so hard to take a decision because there are so many trade-offs that you had to consider. Then something changed, something that really changed my life. I read a Stanford professor had written a book about decision making because I was like, what? I wanted to learn how people take decisions. How can I optimize my decisions? And the learning was interesting that there is really no best decision because you have like certain data points today based on what you make a decision, and the world is going to be a different place when your decision is actually the outcome is going to be there. So even if you have every information today, like getting a stock price or a college entry, like where I want to go, or a company, where should I invest, where should I join, that it goes IPO, I will use what, okay, who are the founders, what it's looking like, the product need and everything. But if the world changes, my best decision could be a flop show, right? So I cannot be really
Yeah.
attached to the outcome, but all I can do is take a decision today. I cannot live in the future and predict, right? So
Yeah.
that helped me, like, really took the pressure off, and I was feeling so much at ease because I think I was trying to predict the future, which I cannot based on current variables. So all I can look at is like today what's available and then take a decision versus not taking a decision. Like sometimes I'm looking at stocks. Really, it happened with me. And I was like, should I buy? Should I not buy? And then I was like, okay, let me cook lunch. And then after I brought my lunch, you know what happened? I refreshed my app and it was like crazy high. I was like, really? I should have just taken a decision of mine.
Wow. So
Yeah.
so tell me a bit more about that, right? Which is how is that manifested in life for you now? Because I think you're talking about arguably the most critical thing, which is how do we decide whether to go right or left? You just had this radical transformation about how to make those decisions. Like, how has that come about for you?
Yeah, so I do my homework, but again, I think, as you said about learning fast, it's about making a decision faster rather than. So I look at current variables and then make a decision rather than predicting the variables in the future because I think we try to predict what's gonna be the state of the union in the future, which we cannot. It is bound to go anyways. So look at what is the situation of the world right now and then make a decision. And
That's
don't
really
worry,
cool.
don't be attached to the outcome.
Tell me about the non-attachment to the outcome. Are you good at that? Do you find that difficult? Because I feel like what you're saying requires so much awareness. Like it's a testament to you to be able to be like, here's the facts in the moment. I'm not going to futurize. I'm not going to think about this. Like I'm okay with the outcome. I'm just going to make the best decision I can with what's in front of me.
I have tried to not think that I will make the best decision, because when I put so much emphasis on making the best decision, then I'm setting myself up for failure. That's what I realized. Because
Wow.
then I'm not letting my intuition to come in. I'm not looking at current data, I'm looking more at future data. So rather, I think, okay, I have to make a decision which is optimal in today's world. Of course, today's world gives some projections about future, but I cannot like just jump there and start taking that approach of prediction, right? Let's just see what's there, what are the facts, and take something. And I think I'm just a happier person because we have to make so many decisions. Some are of high stakes, some are for low stakes. So definitely don't worry too much about low stake decisions. Take them. But even for higher stake decisions, having this clarity that yeah, this may not be right help has helped me a lot.
Wow. I think that that's the most important thing that is
Yeah,
of the
because then
whole
I also
podcast.
do the work. Okay, if it goes wrong, what is my mitigation plan, right? Rather than thinking, oh, I've making the best decision. Now the our outcome is going to be perfect. It can wrong. So I always like I'm prepared. My mind is ready that okay, this may backfire. What's my backup plan? So
Yeah, you're dynamic. I think that that was so profound what you said. It really resonates really deeply. And I think it's so subtle. But if you're not trying to make the best decision, what I hear is that it allows you the freedom to A, put the decision in context, and B, that you're not trying to predict the consequences, which is impossible. And it just takes so much pressure off.
yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna say thank you here without
Incredible.
giving any adjectives or any other things.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. That I will think about that for a really long time.
Sure. So, Lexi, let's switch gears. I'm thinking let's share some building blocks of visibility with our listeners. Let's say if somebody is willing to spend maybe 30 minutes every week to
Yeah.
start investing in their visibility. So, what should they do? What would you recommend?
Okay. I think it's really interesting about where to tackle and how to think through it. So let's dive through a few different options. One strategy might be to lean into your bright spots. So, what do you really like doing? So, maybe you're someone who really likes talking to other people, but you just don't have the time. It's really natural. But leaning to your visibility would be to talk to a group of people once a week, right? Whether that's you're at work and go out of your way to do the presentation and like in a high stakes way, or whether it's I have a bunch of friends who just started a blog, but it's awesome. Whenever it comes out, I like read it all the time because it's so interesting. Another thing to do is to go to something, and this is something we do at Super Interviews, but like go to your LinkedIn or go to your resume, not because you want to leave your job, because you really want to think about your story and how to own that and what that looks like. So many of us have these professional profiles that haven't been updated in a decade or more. But if you really wanted to go after that, what would that look like? How do you tell your story? One of my favorite questions to ask people is, what do you want? And then how do you match your story to align with what you want? And when you ask someone what they want, you get this such a rich, deeply engrossing tapestry of who they are as a human being. And then sometimes they have a story that doesn't fit. And it's not like they don't have the pieces, they just haven't put it together or spend a little bit of time of being like, what were those five outlier traits? So that's one way, if that's like leaning into a bright spot. I think another way is to work on an area that you're uncomfortable with. Now, I am not a big believer in that people need to be super, super well-rounded. I actually think that is like pretty bad advice for the majority of people on the planet. I think we grew up in kind of American school society where you try and get an A on every subject, but I don't actually think that's the best. I think it's way better to be an outlier in a few things than try and be well-rounded at everything. That being said, you don't want any, especially as a senior leader, you don't want any piece of it to hold you back. So you sometimes you need the homeopathic dose of something. So you're just good enough where you're above the bar, but it's not like, oh, I need to take my worst skill and
Mm.
make it better. But a lot of times we have a story that's in our head about stepping into our visibility, that's probably not true. Like if we really examine why we don't like that thing, the argument for why we don't like it is not that strong. And so I think that part of stepping into your visibility for a half an hour is to like take something, and maybe that's like posting, exposing your thoughts externally. And maybe someone may have posted in the past and it didn't really work, or you're like, what's the point? And really examine why you don't like that. And what about it doesn't interest you? And if it's under an intense examination, a self-examination, if it holds up, I'm not saying go do it. But if it doesn't hold up, then maybe that's the thing to go do for a half an hour, is something that was, even a year ago, a weakness where you're like, now this is my strength. The third thing that I think is really important is to do it with peers. So those are both individual things that you can do. But a half an hour with peers a week is just like a multiplicative force that almost is hard to find on the planet. Other than compound interest, surrounding yourself with really smart people who hold you accountable, who you can learn from, who you feel committed to, is a cheat code. And so one of the other things I suggest is having a group of peers to, in a really structured way where you're super committed, but to say, here are my goals. They have to understand your goals. Here's what I'm going to accomplish, and to check in with them and really treat that time as sacred. Ideally, you have a coach or a third party who holds everyone accountable, but that's like another way to just get started tomorrow. And I think one of the things is so funny. So you look at all this scientific research, and like there's such a benefit to walking, right? It's so good for you, but it's not, oh, you need to go walk 100 miles a day. Just walking a little bit really matters. And so I think just doing a half an hour on these things, like you can be a different person in 6 months.
Yes, very, very, very well said. Yeah, it's like, in fact, if you walk 100 miles in one day, then you will not be able to walk for many more days. It's better to be consistent than just take a wider leap. I think those are so nicely said. Yeah, very practical. So, Lexi, you
Yeah.
had mentioned that you learned that visibility is not an option. So, when did you first set out to make yourself visible? Was it like in your job at the time, or you started with posting about your strength? You also mentioned, I just to recap to listen, strength-based visibility. So,
Yeah, strength-based visibility, I think is really important.
what's your journey? What was your journey like?
Yeah, so I think that it's a brilliant question. I think it started when I was really young because I loved reading. And I think books are like the best thing in the world. I think reading is the single biggest gift that anyone's ever given me. I'm a very lucky person, but I think it's by far the biggest gift because you get to pick up a book that has the absolute best ideas that that author has had in their entire life. Like sometimes people spend 10 years on a book, 20 years on a book. That's 20 years of their best thinking, nights and days and stars and sunsets and like early mornings, all of it. You get it all and you get it concentrated and you read it in 2 hours or 4 hours or 10 hours. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I just got the knowledge of another person on this planet. It's amazing. I got their best thing, their 100-mile-an-hour fastball. And I think that I always really admired that courage it takes because this is what product is. This is what building a company is. This is what creation is going from a blank piece of paper to something and have that something make an impact on other people on the planet. Like that's the best thing. I would do that for free for the rest of my life. So I think that always felt visible in a way. And I think for me, I never knew like what I was really put on the earth to do. There's this amazing quote from You, Me, and Dupree where Owen Wilson's is like, yeah, like my mom always tells me this. Some people are born and when they're 5 years old, they know what they want. They're like, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a founder. I want to be an engineer. What a gift that is to know why you're put on this planet. And they go become that. And then some people, they go to college and they get hit by it in college from a teacher or professor, and they learn that I want to get my PhD or I want to go get my master's or I want to go, into this area. Some people are just like walking around trying to figure out waiting to get hit by lightning. And what is their lightning?
I like the last category the best.
Right. And I think that when you're in the last category and you're trying to figure out why was this bundle of neurons and soul and all these pieces put on this planet and you don't know and you're just trying to get hit by lightning. it's really interesting because then there's a question of, well, what does visibility mean in that world? Like,
Mm.
I'm not the best yet. I'm not on top of the mountain. I don't even know exactly what I'm doing. What do I have to share? And why would anyone care? And I don't think that that's right. I don't think that that's the correct way to look at this. I think we're all trying to walk each other home. We're all trying to figure that out, and we're all learning and we're growing. We're all spending 10,000 hours. And the best thing that someone could do in that moment is to share and is to be like, here's what I'm learning. What do you see? And this is so true in AI. Like, we're working so much in AI as a company. We're just like in it as hardcore as a product experience you possibly could. And every day, my whole mindset, my whole worldview changes. And I was like, man, I thought I knew about the world and I didn't know about it. And the whole team's trying to learn. I'm so lucky to work with the most brilliant engineers in the world. And so we're trying to be like, wait, what if that means that? Then design is different, and then product's different, and then how do we think about this? And like we're trying to write prompts and we're trying to figure this out, and it's changing all the time. And you're just like, man, this is the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. Like, this is just, there's these moments like working at Facebook or building products from scratch when I was at Strive, or, building an app from scratch when we were working on My Town, or, building Sidebar, where it just feels like the wind's through your hair. Like, you're just going as fast as you can. And that's what this feels like now. And we got to talk about it. Like, if I wasn't talking about it, and if I wasn't visible, and if I wasn't being like, I don't know how to do this, and I don't like, I would be left behind. I wouldn't be learning fast enough. And so it changed for me from a nice to have thing, and that I had bucketed it nice to have because I hadn't felt like I had been struck by lightning. I didn't know my why, to, oh, this is a requirement because I won't be able to accomplish my dreams. And I won't be as good as I know I can be unless I'm just talking and sharing and learning and conversing, and I'm out and I'm learning. And the smartest people I know are sharing all the time, and they're learning as fast as they possibly can. And I was doing that, but I couldn't do it fast enough. And the best way to do it is in public. And so that's the kind of bit that flipped.
Thanks for sharing. You mentioned about books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I was trying to write a book a couple of years ago, and I realized how much effort it takes because every author wants to share the best they have, and they do more research, and it takes
Yeah.
a lifetime to create a good book, right? So
Yeah.
I totally
But,
agree.
but I would read your book in 10 seconds. I'd be your first, I would pre-purchase it. Like, yeah, you have so much to share.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%.
What are your favorite books that we can recommend to the audience because you are such an avid reader?
You gotta help me. Like, you want top 10 overall? Do you want like books about work? Do you want books about like genre? Like, what's your genre?
So I think something that can change someone's life, and if something that can help them with visibility, both will be great. You can also add one of your favorite books on any subject.
So there's this poet, David White, who's my favorite poet. And he wrote what I would say is the best book on business, actually, that I've ever read. And it's called Crossing the Unknown Sea. Everyone should read this book. And it's about who you are and how you show up in work. The reason we started Sidebar is we spend 90,000 hours of our lives working. It's the vast majority of time we spend on the planet awake. And who do you get to talk to about that work? Like, who do you get to talk to about the craft? And I think it's like, who do you get to talk to about what you're learning, about what you're seeing, about those problems that are coming? And how do you get that insight from someone who's been there and done that before? And you can kind of learn in that way. And Crossing the Unknown Sea, it's called a pilgrimage of self-discovery. There's this amazing part of this book where the poet David White is stressed. He's been working a lot. He's been running. He's got 1,000 things going on in his head. And he walks into a room, Rush, he's the CEO of his company. And he's like, really kind of in a husk, angry way, where's David? And he like asked where he was because he's David. Like, where did I get lost in this? And then he talks about how to find your love of yourself and of work. And he talks, it's interesting. There's this amazing chapter about outlaws, and that how it's really important that regardless of where you're working, you have to have some time in the day that's just for you. It's like to not conform. It's to do something non-conforming. It's to keep your wildness as part of as part of who you are, because that's where the magic and the creativity and the uniqueness comes in. And that's different for every person. I was talking to a sidebar member yesterday, and they go jump in the ocean for 20 minutes every day in the middle of the day. And I was like jealous. I don't really get jealous. I was so jealous. I was like, because that was their wildness, that was their outlaw. And we all need that. So Crossing the Unknown Sea, everyone should read it. It's a life-changing book. It's beautiful. And his poetry is beautiful, but his prose is amazing. So it's about owning your identity and owning who you are and being comfortable with the fact that your identity, by its very nature, means that it's not someone else's.
Must read. It sounds like a must read.
It's a
Yeah.
must read. It's a must read. It's an amazing book. The second book. So one of the big inspirations for us in starting Sidebar was this book called Let My People Go Surfing by Yvon Chouinard, who founded Patagonia.
Mhm.
And it's an amazing book. Everyone should read Let My People Go Surfing. It's an incredible book. And it's really beautiful because creating something from nothing is the hardest thing that I know how to do in the world. And I barely know how to do it. But I just don't think there's anything more difficult than the journey it takes to have nothing and then create something that matters in the world. And Let My People Go Surfing is the story about how to do that kind of unapologetically in your own way without conforming, because so much of the world is inspiring you to conform. So
Mm.
much of everything we face every day is to be the same, is to solve problems in the same way. And that's what founding is. That's what being a leader is. That's what building from scratch is to be like, no, we're not going to be the same. We're going to be different and we're going to be unique and we're going to do our research and we're going to solve a real foundational problem and it's going to matter. And I think that Let My People Go Surfing is that story and how you build a culture of where everyone feels that energy. And that's a lifelong journey.
Oh my God, you just answered one of the questions on my head. I was meeting a spiritual guru, and I do think you have a spiritual angle, so I'm sharing this story.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
So generally we ask, okay, what's the technique? Am I doing it right or wrong? Because you're like, oh, I want to accelerate in my spiritual journey if that's my goal. And then they tell me, hey, don't worry, just let go with the flow. But my mind comes in the way. How do I do it right? Is this right? How many times? And all that stuff. And then something like inner wisdom, I think told me there are infinite ways to do something and you don't have to conform to one way. Even from going to here, if we look at electron level or air particle, one can take this path, this path, this path. There are so many pathways. I think that's what you said. So
That's brilliant. There's infinite. There's
infinite,
infinite
yeah.
ways up the mountain.
Yeah. And what gets successful, then we look backwards as I was saying, and then people are like, oh, this is the right path. Let me go by this right path.
Well, and that's why I think it's so important to be the first person through the door of other people's success. Is
Yeah.
like we live in a world of kind of infinite abundance in a lot of ways when it comes to success. And that's why I think when, a friend is successful, it's so important to be the first person through the door and be like, yes, like let's celebrate, let's go, because their path up a mountain inspires all of us, right? It's like we're all bringing each other up, we're all lighting each other. And that's why I think it's so important. And that's why stepping into your light is not optional. It's not like it's like visibility is not an optional thing. Like we're all trying to climb to our own goals and our own mountain. And there's so many people who want to cheer you on. There's so many people who want to learn from you. You also, by showing the way, you give permission to others to do the same, right? And I think that we just don't know the power and impact that our actions have. It's so multiplicative and multivariable, but that's why this is almost a requirement of leadership is to go step into it and try and fail and try and keep going and try and succeed and learn and like go kind of juice as much as we can in life.
Yeah. Thank you, Lexi, for sharing everything so authentically. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and I feel like the time just flew. We need to talk way more.
I would
To be
love that so
here.
much. I'm so grateful. I think what you said about decision making really was life changing for me. Like I really like click something in my brain and I'm gonna think about it all the time. So just this time with you already changed my life. I'm so grateful. So thank you for that. It's actually absolutely incredible. And yeah, this podcast is amazing. And then the last thing I'll say is that if anyone else is looking for a book to read that's not related to work, everyone should read Pride and Prejudice. I think it's the best book ever written. All I want to do is be as smart as Elizabeth Bennet. So if you haven't read Pride and Prejudice, it's the best of the best. So that's my number one best recommendation. If nothing else helped in this whole podcast, Jane Austen is the best of the best.
Yeah, this is incredible. Yeah, and what you said, I think the energy is always mutual. So I thoroughly felt the same.
Well, that's so kind of you. And yeah, I think that I just, it's so powerful, the podcast and how much everyone can learn from you. So I think it's an amazing testament. And thanks for teaching us all to step into our light because I am leaving even more empowered. And that's a direct result of you. So thank you so much.
Same here. Thank you so much, Lexi.
Thank you for listening. This podcast is an original production of Women in Product. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Women in Product YouTube channel. Leave us a review so that others can discover us, or share this episode with others. Original music provided by Jimmy Hahn.